If you're relying on tools for your mediumship, you're most likely outsourcing your power. And this is what I want to speak about today on today's episode. Welcome back to my channel with yours truly, CJ Amanda, psychic medium and mentor, showing all of the next era mediums what mediumship is all about by really mastering a next level of energetics. So today we are getting into what it means to use spiritual tools such as pendulums, wands, oracle cards, tarot cards, spirit boxes, Ouija boards, even systems like astrology, human design. And none of these things are innately bad or things that we shouldn't use outright, but it's the energetics that we hold that I see that is being held within the spiritual community as we're using it. And it's very disempowering. And I want to speak to that because then if we are to use these tools, how should we be using them and in what context and what to understand about that? And ultimately, when we're using tools such as these, we are creating a disconnect from ourselves. We are creating this disconnect because instead of fully relying on our gift, our abilities, and expanding that, we are outsourcing, we are trusting in beyond ourselves. We are trusting in something that is external to us in these tools. And these tools such as wands, pendulums, even crystals, whatever is external to us, this is when we're putting all of our trust into something that is external for us for that validation. And this is what I'll see often even on the TikToks, the things online, places online where I'm seeing these live readings being given. And a lot of these things is where I'm seeing them. Where it creates this level of disempowerment. And this is where I really wanted to speak to it, because when you can read the energetics, when you could see what's happening, I'm like, no, 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 no. Of course, there is this beautiful lesson in that for the person receiving that reading, if they are fully taking on that answer as being the true answer, then they are learning a lesson around disempowerment as well, just as much as the person giving the message. So there is a lesson there. Nothing is inherently good or bad, but there needs to be this awareness around it, okay? Because I will see these questions being asked around, will I get that job? Will this person come back into my life? Will, like, all of these big life questions that we're asking online to and giving our trust to psychics and mediums. Is my loved one okay on the other side? All of these things we're giving our trust, and then I am seeing that disconnect of not even just the disconnect with ourselves, but in the integrity that we have around this work. So super important for me to speak to that, because if we're taking cards such as these, which I have cards, I love cards. But if we're taking them, and what I'll see is just flipping the card and giving yes, no, yes, no. And as I'm reading the energy, there's no connection to the energetics of really reading the psychic energy there. We are fully trusting in whatever the card may be saying. And the card in and of itself, any type of inanimate object, is not going to give you the truth of things. It's through our connection. It's the energy that we're holding. And this is what I want you to think about when we're looking at how we're using cards. If we are giving all of our power away to the card, and we don't see it as this, of course, but if we are saying, okay, the pendulum or the wands, they're giving the yes or no, or these cards or the tarot is going to give us our predictions in life. If we are holding the energy that it's the cards that are going to tell us, or it's spirit who's coming through and the cards that are going to tell us and direct us in life, then what energy do you think you're holding? What energy do you think you're holding and you're mirroring? And that, what do you think that you're attracting on that level? Because if we are in a disempowered state where we're giving away the power to something outside of ourselves, what do you think we're attracting? We are attracting that same level of vibration, meaning that more times than not, the energy that is coming through these tools are going to be from that disempowered state, are going to match that. So it means that it's going to feed into either our ego or whatever other energy that we're holding in that moment to give those answers. Because if we think that our high level being guides are there coming through our pendulum or the wands or whatever it is to give yes or no questions, it's not usually how they will communicate or ask. Because if we are vibrating at such a high level to be able to connect to those high level beings, we're seeing that we don't need an intermediary through these tools to be able to do that. We don't need that. We can tell just by tuning into the frequency, that connection comes in such a divine way that we don't need an intermediary thing, that tool, to come in its place to give us those answers. We just know that through the connection. So if you're holding that disempowered state, what do you think you're actually calling in? Super important to think about this, okay? And so I will use some of these tools as examples as I talk about what it means to be in this energetic state and what's happening to your gifts as you're using these tools. And then I'll show you as well, or talk to, how we can actually use them in a way that can be, that could be, that could be useful. That could be very useful to us. I think it's important not to just blanket statement things and say, if you're just using tools, automatically you are a bad psychic or medium. It's the energy that you hold behind it. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to think of is that when we're using tools, it does create this distrust in self. There is this disconnect that is there. So that is like that first level of disconnect that we'll see. There are different levels of disconnect that I see, and some are a little bit more sneaky than others, but it can create this level, or this is the one that I really want to speak to the most, is when we're really fully just giving all of our power and trust to the tool. That's creating that disconnect automatically from self because of what I just spoke about. Okay. On another level, it also clogs, it creates like these filters to our channel. So instead of having this clear channel of connection, we are filtering it through whatever information we are getting, either the yes or no answers through the pendulum or whatever's written on a card, if that's tarot, oracle. But let's use, because I have these handy, the oracle cards, let's use these as an example of how it's going to limit your abilities. And what way it can limit your abilities is when we're fully relying on the card and what it says, rather than tuning into what the information is. And it'll skew it in terms of the interpretation of it. So it's not just, oh, I'm reading a card and whatever it says on it, and then I'm getting this good feeling, and now I can deliver this message. We're not even interpreting at that moment. We're just having those good feels. We just like the message and we're relaying it. So, but if we really want to enhance our abilities, we want to be able to have that ability to know how to interpret what we're receiving. Because let's say I pull this card. This card says on it, the words on it says the crowning, the initiation, a rebirth, a seat at the table. These are the words that are on this card. This card should absolutely mean something different for every single person that I pull it for, or it absolutely will. Because what does it actually mean? A rebirth. What does it mean? Does it mean an actual birth? Is it a inner rebirth? What does that rebirth actually look like for somebody? If you have this filter of, oh my gosh, rebirthing, or like the night of the shadow of the soul, that's going to be such a painful, becoming of something, but it's going to be worth it. Like that's your interpretation of it because it's your own perception of what a rebirth means. Then we're not reading the energy. We're not delivering the actual message that that person needs. Maybe it's just a shift in the energetics. Maybe there's something that we need to know around the energetics, around this rebirthing energy that's coming through, right? Like it should mean something different for every single person. But if we are relying on the card and what is being said on the card, rather than tuning into our channels to know what message is meant to be delivered here, then we are creating that disconnect again, and we are not bringing forward those messages that is needed for the person for the highest good, on top of the fact of limiting our abilities from growing, because we are giving all of our trust in the card and the words that are on the card, rather than trusting our channels and understanding how to use them and what that means, and how to decipher those really specific, those nuances between all the different people that you're reading for. Super important there. Third thing is and not that I was enumerating things, like I don't, but this is a third thing here, is that what is actually coming through? Like what are you actually connecting to when you're reading the energy through the cards, or you're getting yes or no answers through pendulums or spirit boxes? Probably the best example to give what actual spirit is coming through. And a spirit box, if you don't know what that is already, is like this radio. It's this box radio type thing where when you turn it on, you can have spirits and voices coming through the radio box, so to speak. So the spirit box will come through and speak. So you'll actually hear it. You'll hear voices coming through, dismembered voices coming through. And so you'll hear voices coming through, giving you answers. You're like, oh my gosh, this is this person. Like I called in, and I'll see this being done a lot of the times with celebrities, being like, oh my gosh, this celebrity passed away. The way in which she passed was very was scary. She must be in a lot of pain on the other side. And so they'll call in this spirit or this voice, and they say that it's her because they called her through, and things will come through, and I will realize that I can read the energy, and I will see that is not that person. That is not that celebrity at all. This is another spirit coming through with this voice that sounds very much like her coming through to speak. And so, yes, we are connecting to something. We are connecting to spirit, but we're not connecting to the spirit that we want to be connecting to. And instead, it's eliciting this fear, this pain that doesn't like it's eliciting all of this fear, very disempowered messages coming through that aren't true, that aren't real to the spirit that we actually want to be connecting to. So I keep seeing these things as, oh my goodness, we are trusting in, relying and believing in what this is, and we are saying, great, like this is the truth because it's tangible. Just because it's tangible doesn't mean that it's of integrity or that it's good. It's very much like, if we're using tools, it's very much like as if I say, listen, I want you to make decisions in your life, but instead of trusting your intuition, I would like you to go to your neighbor and ask them to make all the decisions for you in your life. And especially if your neighbor is not someone who you trust or think that they make good decisions in your life, you're like, well, why would I ever do that? Well, because they're there. It's another human being. They're human like you. And so they would understand experiences of what it means to experience life. So why not trust in them? Just ask them to make all the decisions in your life. You would say, absolutely not. That's silly talk. I am not going to do that. I would never just give away my power to some random stranger or even my neighbor to make those very important decisions in my life. Okay, so why are you doing it with spirit? Why are you doing it with spirit? Who is it that you're connecting to? If you are able to read the energy, you'll be able to know, is this actually my spirit team who are there, who are really there on the other side for my best interest, which does exist, which you do have there at your disposal? Or is this a low vibrational spirit coming through who is giving you or feeding your ego or trying or doesn't have the best intentions for you, and whose whole purpose and agenda of existing is to create disempowerment in this world? And so, but the fact that we just think that it exists and it's cool because now we have something tangible, we give our trust to it. We shouldn't. Just like you wouldn't give your trust to just any random stranger on the street or your neighbor who you don't think makes good decisions in their lives or whatever it is. We don't just blindly give trust. We have to create a level of discernment. If we really wanted to know the next steps in our lives on top of, truly believing in ourselves, but if we needed guidance in our life, I wouldn't just go to any random stranger. I would go to somebody who holds a level of integrity, who has done the things that I aspire to achieve, who is able to have a certain level, of mindset or whatever it is that I require to follow their guidance, who are, well beyond where I am in my life, like those type of things. Like that's where, maybe I will have an open ear and listen to what they have to say. I just wouldn't listen to the random stranger on the street who doesn't know me, who I don't know where they are in their life, to blindly believe whatever they say and follow that as truth in my life, right? So this is the level of discernment that we need to have just as much as in spirit world, or even more, as we do in our very real, tangible life. So this is how I want you to think about that. Just because something comes through, just because something says that they are what they say that they are, it does not mean that it's actually that thing. This is where we need to trust in our psychic abilities over any tool. We need to know how to read energy. We need to know what that looks like and what that feels like, okay? So this is the basis of it all, but there's also this other layer, this other film of how disempowerment can become very sneaky. And this is what I call the security blanket of disempowerment. And it's not this very low level thing. It's this understanding of where we leak our power and how we can really truly tap into this next level of energetics for ourselves as we're expanding our gifts. So this will look like, let's come back to the card, and that let's say you are this beautiful channel who is truly listening and receiving additional information, bang on to what, the client your client is searching for. Let's say you're doing readings, things of that nature. You're able to really bring through profound, life-changing information for your clients, and it really has this beautiful ripple effect in their life. Beautiful, amazing. Where the disempowerment could come in is feeling like that information needs to be validated by the tools. That ultimately you feel like you can't truly get that information unless you have your cards or your tools at hand. That you would, you like what you receive, you believe what you receive, you trust in what you receive to a certain level, but you very much like the security of having these visual cues. Maybe it's because your clients are used to it and they would like to know that the cards confirmed what you say. So you both are in on this, like subconsciously wanting the validations from the cards or the tools or whatever it is that you have, or it's yourself saying, I really trust in what I'm getting, but I would just like that extra validation. And so this is that little tinge of, I need my security blanket for my spiritual gifts. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's knowing where we leak our power, because it's very much about the energetics that we hold and not necessarily what we do, because these are just inanimate objects that we're using to help us build our gifts or tune into psychic information. They are not in and of themselves good or bad or high or low vibrational. It's the person using them and the state that they're in that's going to attract the information or receive the information that they get. And it's about being in that state or that vibration where you're able to connect at that highest level. And if you are giving your power away and truly feeling like you need that validation, that security blanket to be able to get the answers, this is where we want to be able to break away from that so you can truly lead into that next level of energetics and abilities all together. So super important for this. And if you want to begin to build it, I mean, I started to build a lot of my own intuition and building up my confidence and my gifts. I began with oracle cards such a long time ago, before I even thought consciously to really tune into my gifts. This was just something I wanted to see what would come through, have fun with it. It was pure curiosity, and that's such a beautiful energy to go at it with, because it's through that curiosity. We're not in that disempowered, like, I need answers now and I'm desperate for the answers. What am I going to do? And so I'm pulling cards. This is, ooh, what is this? What are these oracle cards? What information is going to come through? How does this actually work? And it was in that energy that allowed me to begin to tune into the different psychic information that would come through for myself. And building on that afterwards, the cards were just this beautiful visual representation of everything that was coming through. And I saw that I no longer needed them. Not that I wasn't really using them in the readings that I was doing, but I wasn't searching or sourcing from them or curious about them anymore. I was on another step of tuning into my psychic gifts and abilities, but I did see how that could be such a beautiful reinforcement of expanding and developing your gifts. So again, it's with the energy that you come at it through. And it's not just good enough to have these good intentions. We need to have discernment about the information that we're receiving and trust that beyond anything else. And I urge that for anything that you receive, regardless if it's through a tool, if it's by, a medium or a psychic giving you information. I need you to always bring it through your own intuitive awareness, your own intuitive scan, and allow that to be the main decider of anything. So if something feels off, if something doesn't resonate with you, even if you're like, yeah, but that could just be my ego, I want you to get into the habit of trusting yourself beyond anything else. So important. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful to you. Again, if you have questions, comments, your own personal stories around this, around what you experienced, or if you're someone who uses tools and you're like, I totally agree, this is how I use them so that I'm not disempowered, or if you're like, oh my gosh, it's such a light bulb moment, I think I'm going to tune into how I can up level my energetics, just let me know. I love these stories because we all live and go through this level of exploration and understanding. And for me, this is all about the integrity and discernment in this work. It's too important not to do that. And as well, last little side note, we are beginning becoming the Becoming Mastermind tomorrow. So this is really exciting. You can go check on the link in my bio on Instagram if you want to know and have more information, and join us, all about embodying the psychic gifts that you have, because oftentimes it's not a gift problem, it's an embodiment problem. I explained to you what that means. And Medium, the early bird pricing is still on, but only for a little while longer. We are beginning in September. This is my 4-month mediumship program, showing you the energetics that no one else shows you. It's not just about communicating, knowing how to tap in, tune in, and connect to spirit. This is about knowing how to master your energetics and create that foundation right from the start, so you can infuse mediumship with psychic abilities unlike anyone I know who teaches it, so that you can do that yourself, okay? And become that next era medium. Super excited. I'll see you next week on next week's episode. Have a good day. Bye.